Hi, my name's Tex. I'm part of business development at Authentize. This is going to be a quick walkthrough on our newest software, Whisper. It's our latest release, just released last month, and it revolves around capturing lost engineering context. So a bit of background about our company. We started about 13 years ago, mainly in the production management workflow software side of things. So that's depicted with these modules down here. You've got digital design warehouse and then flows, which is the bulk of our production management software. It includes things like scheduling of machines, materials management, automated quoting, etc. But a few years ago, after talking to some of our clients, it became increasingly obvious that a huge problem that engineering and design teams were facing was that context and intent was being lost at the design stage of an engineering project. And that's where Threads comes in. We built Threads a few years back as a collaboration tool, similar to Teams or Slack, but with huge features that lend itself to capturing that design intent. So at the moment, data lives in the channels that you're communicating in, and it's normally quite a mess. So emails, videos, video calls, whiteboards, whatever communication app you might use. And the problem with this is that the why, what, why, when of the design process is being lost. So, why was the design changed? What were the risks associated with it? And which requirements drove that decision? What does the supplier need to recreate that part, right? And this means handoffs get harder, data package generation gets slower, and data is lost essentially. So when we released Threads, the biggest problem essentially was inertia. So companies do not want to change the way they communicate. Everyone has their own way of doing things. Everyone has an existing process that they communicate in, and they don't want to change that. And even if they did change that, there's no guarantee that their partners might change that as well. Okay, so we knew that capturing engineering intent was key, but building more UI tools was not the answer. Okay, and that's where Whisper comes in. Okay, so Whisper is a layer that sits across the channels that you're already communicating in and that you're already sharing data in. It then captures data from those sources. It understands and categorizes that data with permissions, and then it acts upon that data, okay, in what we're calling effectors. So an effector is any area that Whisper acts in, and that action can be alerts, it can be updates, it can be task generation, and an example of an effector would be something like HubSpot or SAP, so the tools that you might be using. Going into the interface of what Whisper actually looks like, you start with setting up your integrations, right? So in this example, we have a few that are already set up, but the way we're currently pitching Whisper is it's open source. So we want you to take the software and set up your own integrations that match whatever your setup looks like for you. But just going into what some of the integrations look like, and it's slightly different case by case. But setting up, for example, a Google Drive, you can see at the moment it has access to 21 of my files, indexed 18 and 4,909 chunks of data. To set up an integration, so to give it permission to a specific folder, it's just a case of copying this web URL. In the case of this demonstration, we're going to be focusing on data surrounding a hypothetical design scenario where you're discussing the airworthiness of a space apart and the design decisions made around that. Okay, so that's access to Drive, access to Gmail is a similar situation. Obviously, a huge thing to take into consideration with Whisper is permissions. So for Gmail, we have the feature where you can select by tags. You can see that I've clicked the space airworthiness review tag, which is a small folder that I created discussing this space apart. Okay, and going back, These other integrations are available along with any that you might decide to do. Slack, while I haven't personally set it up, my team has, which means I still have access to Whisper on the channels that it's been allowed to exist in. So, for example, we have a Slack channel here. You can tag Whisper like you would a colleague and make inquiries against that, which means everyone in the channel will be able to partake in that conversation. Or you can have a private conversation with Whisper in this private tab on the right here. And this interface is the exact, so a conversation you'd have here is the exact same interface that you would have within the Whisper homepage itself. So I'm sure you guys know how to prompt an AI at this point, but for example, a question such as, what are the updates with the part, we'll just space it, and it'll give you an answer, something like this, right? And you can see that it's pulling from multiple sources. So here you've got a few from Google Drive and then some from Gmail as well. But that's not really where I think the true benefits of Whisper lie. We want to essentially alleviate as much of the cognitive load as possible. So what we've done is we've created our own, what we're calling effectors, essentially. So they're agents where Whisper can act. And the one we've created here is for compliance. So this is designed, we work a ton in the aerospace or defense sectors. Compliance is a huge issue that causes a lot of delays and problems when it comes to design considerations. What Whisper's doing in the case of this effector is it's listening across your channels and surfacing any references to design requirements. So you can see here that it's got autonomous scanning with intervals every 30 minutes, keywords, certain standards which you can update yourself, and it's auto-discovered 4 compliance requirements that we need to meet, and then 1 that's manually inputted, which can just be manually configured here with a bunch of standards that we've set. So going into one of these projects, this is what we'd call a fully fleshed out effector, but each of these subsections here could, in theory, be their own effector. It depends on what your needs are that you need extracted from Whisper. So just going through these, you can see there's a document document page here. This is where your artifacts exist that you're drawing data from. You've got a set of requirements that need to be met, and along with a compliance matrix, which sort of describes more how those requirements are met, along with a status update, and you can run checks against those requirements. Any design changes can be stored. So if this was an iterative design process, each of those iterations would be stored in the design changes tab. Generating reports. So when we were creating threads, we built a pretty robust data package generation tool that you essentially configure templates inside. We've created some sample ones here. You define those templates, define those sections within those templates, and it will generate the report depending on which template you've selected. Another thing is the digital thread. So this outlines the source of where the documents that you're pulling data from came from. A review stage where if human review is required, this would be shown here, and a full audit trail of what exactly the AI has done. So in often case you need a pretty detailed view of, or a timeline of every decision that was made, and the complete audit trail can be found here. So this is just an example of what an effector might do. In this particular example, so with the compliance example, traditionally, or in the past, compliance audits have taken a huge amount of time and manpower. So, there's periodic audits, evidence is gathered manually, it takes time, and there are often issues that are found late. With Whisper, you get real-time updates on how compliant your company is. So Whisper's monitoring everything. It checks work against internal and external standards, flags divergence, and then maintains a live audit-ready view of compliance. So another example of how an effector might work with this compliance checking would be, you've got Whisper operating again with your current communication channels. It's capturing that data, it's categorizing it with permissions. It would then run that data against your internal standards and then flag any divergence that are identified. And this would manifest in the communications channel, Teams. It would give you alerts and then update HubSpot, for example, as well. Other effectors that we think could be valuable, for example, would be keep product data up to date, which is kind of the one I've just shown you, turn engineering conversations into actionable work, generate reports, which I touched on, surface issues and risks in a project, accelerate onboarding, or capture and preserve engineering intent. And this one we think is super, super valuable. Looking to the future, we see a world where Whisper is across a whole range of communication channels, extracting all this data. And what that means for design teams is that in 5 years' time, when a part might need remanufacturing or redesigning, you don't start from first principles. You start with all the context and intent already at your fingers to inform generative design decisions. And yeah, thank you for joining. We've got a website that's just gone live here with this QR code or link. I can post this link in the channel, or maybe Esther might do that. And we've also got another webinar coming up hosted by Andre, which you can sign up for at this QR code, or feel free to contact me. My email's there as well.
Visible.